Spirit, life force, breath of life, life principle, active force, all those, again, they're synonymous terms. So we've defined life. Now, how does the Watchtower define death? That should be fairly simple. So we go back to the reasoning book definition: the ceasing of all functions of life. After breathing, heartbeat, and brain activity stop, the life force gradually ceases to function in body cells. Death is the opposite of life. So if you take the life force out, that animate being now becomes inanimate. It's dead. It's not alive. So you got the basic idea of what death is, but we're going to get into a more detailed explanation back into that little booklet. This little booklet on page 13, the Victory Over Death booklet, says, accordingly, at death you do not become a disembodied soul. No, for the simple reason that your fleshly body is a part of your soul. When the body dies, the soul is dead. It ceases to exist. Neither do you become a disembodied spirit, or atma. Why not? Because the atma is impersonal, or is the impersonal life force or spirit which animates the living soul and which empowers the soul to think, move, and live. When the life force or atma is extinguished within the living soul, the effect is similar to what happens when electricity is withdrawn from a light bulb. The light is extinguished. Where does the light go? It simply becomes non-existent. It is for this reason that death is the very opposite of life, and that is why death came to mankind as a punishment for disobedience to the creator of life. The human soul is, therefore, not immortal, but mortal, subject to death and extinction. All right, so you've got light as an example. And this elder, before I had even come across this quote, I hadn't been that far in my research yet, but this elder used that example of a light bulb. He said, now think about the light bulb. The light bulb would be the body, and the electricity is the life force, and the light would be your soul. So when you flip the switch off, your soul ceases to exist because the electricity is no longer in the light bulb. And I said, oh, wow, that's a good illustration of what you believe. I fully understand what you're taught about this subject. So here's another example. It takes hydrogen and oxygen to make water. Separate them and the water ceases to exist. It takes combustible material and oxygen to make flame. Separate them and the flame ceases to exist. It takes body and breath of life to produce soul. Separate them and the soul ceases to exist. So body and breath of life, those again synonymous terms. The body and the breath of life is what makes the soul when it's combined. The breath of life is synonymous with life force. So you need both. You need a body and you need this force. If they are separated, what happens? You're extinguished. Okay, there is no more you. Very important. And you're going to see how this fits into the resurrection here. Now, the Watchtower has been consistent all through its history on what it teaches about the soul. This is the April 1881 page 1 Watchtower, the reprints. I managed to get the whole set of the reprints on eBay a number of years ago. And I've got a really good set too. It says, there can be no being or existence without life and body both. Withdraw life and the being or existence ceases. Death is the dissolution or separation of things which combined constitute being, namely life and body. You got to have both, all right? So the key, this is the key idea. Everybody following this so far? Okay, you got to have the life force. You got to have a body, either physical or a spiritual body. You combine those things, you got life. You've got a soul. So now with all that in mind, how does the Watchtower define the resurrection? Trust me, it's going to get a little weird. Going back to the reasoning book on page 344, this is their definition of resurrection. It says the Greek word translated resurrection literally means a standing up again, and it refers to rising up from death. Resurrection involves the reactivating of the life pattern of the individual, which life pattern God has retained in his memory, according to God's will for the individual. According to God's will for the individual, the person is restored in either a human or spirit body, and yet retains his personal identity, having the same personality and memories as when he died. Quote goes on to say, is the resurrection, this is a question that someone would ask you, is a resurrection a reuniting of an immaterial soul with the physical body? And they correctly answer, for this to be possible, of course, humans would have to have an immaterial soul that could separate from the physical body. Then they go on to say, the Bible does not teach such a thing. That notion was borrowed from Greek philosophy. Now, I want you to notice something about the definition. The very first sentence says literally means a standing up again. I was talking with a Jehovah's Witness on the phone. He's still a Jehovah's Witness in name only, but he is out of the organization mentally. And when I read him the definition, he went, it said again, didn't it? I said, yeah, again. That implies something happened before, for it to rise up again. Okay? We're going to get to that. Now, in this quote here, it talked about a life pattern. What is a life pattern, and is this life pattern even biblical? The predecessor of the reasoning book was the Make Sure of All Things book. That was some of your brains way back. On page 311, it says, resurrection is a restoration of life to the non-existent dead. The Greek word anastasis means a rising up or raising up. It is an act of God dependent entirely upon God's marvelous power through Christ and upon his memory of the dead. It is a reactivating of the life pattern of the creature, a transcription of which is on record with God and is referred to as being in his memory. Resurrection does not involve the restoring of the original identical body of the creature. Wow. What a bunch of weird terms. Okay, we've got a bunch of things here that I don't read in my Bible. But as I was reading through this, I was thinking about this, and I thought, in order to restore something, you must have first had an original, right? It's got to have an original. And if the original is non-existent, how can there be a resurrection? How can there be a restoration? Okay, my favorite car is the 1969 Camaro Super Sport. Okay, I would love to have a restored, a car restored like that. That would be awesome. All right, the new Camaros that they've got out now, those are great. If anyone wants to give one to the ministry, tax write-off, hey, no problem right there, right? But it's not an original. It's not an original. So again, here's this question. How can you raise up that which does not exist? Okay, I want you guys to all do something here. We're going to have a mental exercise. Everybody here think of an animal. What'd you think of? Pass. A dog. A what? A dodo bird. Okay, that's good. That's a non-existent creature. You know what? Let's use that. A dodo bird. Okay? We've got an imaginary dodo bird right here. Okay? We're going to resurrect it. How do we do that? It's non-existent. It's gone. You can't resurrect that which does not exist. You have to recreate it. And that's an entirely different term and an entirely different thought. Because if you recreate it, then it does not rise up again, because that is a whole different creation. That is a new thing. It reminds me of something my daughter said once to me. She was upset. I mean, she was upset. I'm in my office, I'm trying to work, and she comes in and she says, did I lose the mic here?
Yes.
Am I on?
No.
No? I hope we didn't lose the battery. I've got green again. All right. So my daughter, Lord, please resurrect this battery. Yeah. So my daughter comes in and she is upset that her brother has done something terrible. And she says, he won't share his imaginary ice cream with me. How do you respond to that? I could have went into, honey, the ice cream doesn't really exist, or I could have done a whole bunch of things and I'd be arguing with a 6-year-old at that point, right? A parenting tip, don't argue with kids that, you just lay down the law. So here's what I did. I said, honey, just pretend that he did. He didn't share it with you? Pretend that he did. And she looked at me and went, Daddy, that's silly. And I said, uh-huh. And she got it. She understood. She got it. Yeah, that is kind of silly, isn't it? Uh-huh. So that's kind of what we've got going on here, is we're raising up things that don't exist. The resurrection, things going to battery hell, which doesn't exist either. I'm on page 18. Is that page 18?
I hope so.
Creature. There we go. That's the right page. All right. Now we're tuned back in. All right. So this resurrection of a memory, it's not a resurrection, it's a recreation. All right. So let's go on, and we're going to define life pattern now. We haven't defined that term. This should be the Watchtower, April 1st, 1958. Got it? All right. Page 328. What did I say? July? April. I'm sorry. June. Yeah, 6/1/58. All right. What is the life pattern God retains in his memory? It's the lifelong record of the creature, a record made by the thoughts he thought, the experiences he had, the knowledge he stored up. So the life pattern results from one's memories and mental abilities. The life pattern includes all intellectual growth and characteristics that make up one's personality. This is what God faithfully reconstitutes in the resurrection. So he doesn't really resurrect you. He just recreates a life pattern. It's a record. He just recreates this record about you. How personal is that? Not real personal. The Make Sure of All Things book, page 311, says the life pattern is the personal lifelong record of the creature built up by his thoughts and by the experiences of the life he has lived, resulting from certain habits, leanings, mental abilities, memories, and history. It's also a register of the individual's intellectual growth and his characteristics, all of which make up one's personality. Hence, according to God's will for the creature, in a resurrection, one is restored or recreated in either a human or a spirit body, and yet retains his personal identity by the setting in motion again of the distinctive life pattern of that individual. Wow. Again, that's the only word that comes to mind. It's just wow.